On January 15th, 2025, just 8 weeks ago, BRICS made a move that economists swore was impossible. Saudi Arabia and the UAE announced their first major oil contract priced entirely outside the US dollar. Within hours, the dollar index dropped. Markets trembled. Financial analysts scrambled to explain what was happening. And for the first time in decades, people around the world started asking the same question: is the US dollar finally finished? Because this wasn't just another headline. This was the first real crack in a system that has controlled global trade for over 80 years. The petrodollar, the foundation of American financial power, just took a direct hit. And if you think this doesn't affect you, think again. Your savings, your paycheck, the price of everything you buy, it's all tied to what happens next in this economic war. So here is the question we're going to answer today. Is the dollar about to collapse under the weight of BRICS expansion? Or is this all just hype designed to scare you? Stay with me, because in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you the real data, the hidden strategies, and the one thing that could either save the dollar or destroy it completely. Let me be very clear about why you need to understand this right now. The battle between BRICS and the US dollar isn't some distant geopolitical chess game that only affects banks and governments. It affects you directly. If the dollar weakens, your purchasing power drops. The price of gas, groceries, electronics, everything imported, it all gets more expensive. If global demand for the dollar falls, the US government has to pay higher interest rates to attract buyers for its debt. And guess who pays for that? You do. Through higher taxes, reduced services, or inflation that eats away at your savings. This is not fear-mongering. This is math. The dollar has been the world's reserve currency since 1944. But for the first time in generations, a coordinated group of nations is building an alternative system, and they are moving fast. Between 2020 and 2025, everything changed. US debt exploded past $35 trillion. Inflation hit levels we had not seen in 40 years. And global trust in American financial stability started cracking. BRICS saw the weakness, and they made their move. Let me give you the 60-second history you need to understand what BRICS actually is. In 2009, 4 countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, formed an economic alliance. They called it BRIC. The idea was simple: coordinate trade, challenge Western financial dominance, and create alternatives to US-controlled systems. In 2010, South Africa joined, and it became BRICS. For over a decade, it was mostly symbolic. A lot of talk, very little action. But then 2023 happened. BRICS announced a massive expansion. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Iran, Egypt, and Ethiopia joined. More countries are lining up. And suddenly, this alliance represents over 45% of the global population and controls a massive share of the world's oil, gas, and gold reserves. In just 15 years, BRICS went from an economic club to the biggest coordinated threat the US dollar has ever faced, and the expansion that changed everything. Because now they have the resources, the population, and the motivation to actually challenge the system. So how exactly does BRICS plan to weaken the dollar? They are not doing it with one big dramatic move. They are using 3 very specific weapons, and each one is designed to chip away at dollar dominance slowly and strategically. Let me break them down. Weapon number 1. Non-dollar oil trades. For decades, oil has been priced in US dollars. If you wanted to buy oil, you needed dollars first. This created automatic global demand for the dollar, which kept it strong and gave the US massive financial leverage. But now, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and China are conducting oil deals in yuan, rubles, and even their own currencies. Every time a country buys oil without using dollars, that is one less reason to hold dollars. And when demand drops, value drops. This affects gas prices, import costs, and inflation in the US. Weapon number 2. A gold-backed settlement system. BRICS is building a mechanism that allows member countries to settle trade using gold or commodity-backed credits instead of dollars. Why does this matter? Because it bypasses the need for dollar reserves entirely. Countries can trade directly using assets they already have, no dollars required. This removes one of the key pillars of dollar dominance, the fact that everyone needs it to trade internationally. Weapon number 3, BRICS Pay. This is their answer to SWIFT, the US-controlled global payment system. SWIFT is how money moves between countries, and the US has weaponized it by blocking nations like Russia and Iran from accessing it. BRICS Pay is designed to let member countries transfer money across borders without touching the dollar or relying on American infrastructure. It's still in development, but if it works, it removes another layer of US financial control. Each of these weapons alone is manageable, but together, they form a coordinated strategy to make the dollar optional instead of essential. And that is the real threat. If you are still watching right now, you are in the top 1% of people who actually understand what's happening in the global financial system. Most people have no idea this battle is even taking place. So if this is making sense, drop a fire emoji in the comments. Let me know you are following along, because what comes next is where things get even more interesting. Now, let's talk about the thing everyone gets wrong, the BRICS currency. You have probably seen headlines screaming, BRICS launches new currency to replace the dollar, or BRICS gold-backed currency will end the dollar's reign. Here's the truth. There is no single BRICS currency. Not yet, and honestly, there probably never will be. Creating a unified currency requires trust, coordination, and aligned economic policies. The problem: BRICS countries, not trust each other. China and India have border disputes. Russia and Saudi Arabia have conflicting interests. Brazil's economy operates completely differently from Iran's. These countries don't even agree on basic trade terms half the time. How are they supposed to launch a unified currency? What they do have are settlement mechanisms, tools that allow them to trade without using the dollar. But that's not the same as a new global reserve currency. It's more like a workaround, a system that reduces reliance on the dollar without replacing it entirely. But here is the twist. They don't need a unified currency to weaken the dollar. That's the part people miss. Every trade settled in yuan, every oil contract priced in non-dollar terms, every country that builds up gold reserves instead of treasury bonds, those actions chip away at dollar demand. It's not dramatic, it's gradual, but it's happening. And the country driving this strategy quietly, methodically, behind the scenes, China. They are not building a BRICS currency. They are positioning the yuan as the alternative. And they are using the digital yuan, the ECNY, to make it faster, easier, and more efficient for countries to ditch the dollar without anyone noticing. So let's get real. What can BRICS actually do to the US dollar, and what can't they do? Because there's a lot of exaggeration on both sides. Some people act like the dollar is invincible. Others think it's going to collapse next week. Neither is true. Here's what BRICS can do. They can reduce global demand for the dollar. They can shift oil and commodity markets away from dollar pricing. They can build alternative financial infrastructure that makes it easier for countries to avoid using US systems. They can create political and economic pressure that forces the US to make concessions. And they can accelerate the rise of a multi-currency world where the dollar is no longer the only option. But here's what they can't do. They can't replace the US bond market. The US Treasury market is the deepest, most liquid financial market on the planet. No other country even comes close. They can't outstabilize the dollar. For all its problems, the US still has strong institutions, rule of law, and economic resilience that most BRICS countries lack. And they can't overcome the military and geopolitical power of the United States. Financial systems are backed by more than just economics. They are backed by security, alliances, and global influence. So what's the realistic outcome? The dollar won't collapse overnight, but it is bleeding slowly. We are not looking at a dramatic crash. We are looking at a 40 to 60% reduction in dollar dominance over the next decade. That means the dollar remains important, but it's no longer the undisputed king. Other currencies gain ground, countries diversify their reserves, and America loses leverage. The dollar won't die, but it will weaken, and that has consequences for everyone holding dollars, which means you. All right, we are at the halfway point, and now I am about to reveal the part that got me attacked in the comments last time I talked about this. People accused me of being anti-American, of spreading conspiracy theories, of exaggerating the threat. But here's the thing, I am not making this up. I am reading the data everyone else is ignoring. So let me show you what they don't want you to see. Instead of a dollar collapse, what we are actually witnessing is the rise of a multi-currency world. And this is where things get personal for you. Because a multi-currency world doesn't mean the dollar disappears. It means the dollar loses its monopoly. And when that happens, your purchasing power takes a hit. Here's what this looks like in practice. Countries around the world are quietly reducing their dollar reserves. They are buying more gold, more euros, more yuan. They are signing trade agreements that bypass the dollar entirely. Regional financial blocs are forming Asia, trading with Asia, the Middle East trading with Africa, Latin America creating its own systems. The US is slowly being cut out of deals it used to control. And what does that mean for you? It means weaker purchasing power. When global demand for the dollar drops, the value of the dollar drops. Imports get more expensive. Gas prices rise. Electronics, clothing, anything made overseas, it all costs more. Your savings lose value faster because inflation accelerates when the dollar weakens. Let me give you real examples. In India, businesses are now settling trade with Russia in rupees and rubles. In Brazil, they are trading with China in yuan and reais. In the UAE, they are experimenting with dirham-based oil contracts. These are not hypothetical scenarios. These are actual policies being implemented right now in 2025. The world is not abandoning the dollar all at once, but it is slowly, systematically building alternatives. And once those alternatives reach critical mass, the U.S. loses the financial dominance it's relied on for generations. Now here's where people get upset with me. Some of you watching this right now think I am fear-mongering. You think the dollar is untouchable. You believe America's economic power is so overwhelming that no alliance, no matter how large, could ever challenge it. And I get it. I used to think that too. But let me show you the data they never talk about. U.S. Treasury holdings by foreign countries have been declining for years. Central banks around the world are diversifying away from dollar assets at the fastest rate in decades. The percentage of global trade conducted in dollars has dropped from over 70% in the early 2000s to under 60% today, and it is still falling. Gold reserves held by central banks are at record highs. Why? Because gold cannot be sanctioned. It cannot be frozen. It cannot be weaponized the way the dollar has been. Countries watched what the U.S. did to Russia, freezing hundreds of billions in reserves, and they realized, if we hold too many dollars, we are vulnerable. This is not conspiracy. This is policy. Countries are protecting themselves, and the tool they are using to do that is diversification away from the dollar. So when people say I am exaggerating, I ask them, then why is every major central bank in the world reducing dollar exposure? Why are gold purchases surging? Why are bilateral trade deals bypassing the dollar? The data does not lie. The dollar is losing ground, slowly, quietly, but undeniably. But here is the part almost no one talks about. BRICS is not America's biggest threat. America is, because the real danger to the dollar is not coming from outside. It is coming from inside. Let's talk about U.S. debt. $35 trillion and climbing. The interest payments alone are now over $1 trillion a year. That's more than the U.S. spends on defense, more than it spends on education. The government is paying interest on debt with borrowed money, which means the debt spiral is accelerating, and it gets worse. Manufacturing has been gutted. The U.S. used to produce everything. Now it imports most of what it consumes. Political polarization is at historic levels. The government can barely pass basic budgets without shutdowns and standoffs. Social instability is rising. Trust in institutions is collapsing. And the global perception of American stability, once unshakably, is eroding fast. Here's the brutal truth. BRICS does not need to destroy the dollar. The U.S. is doing that all by itself. The internal dysfunction, the unsustainable debt, the loss of manufacturing, the political chaos, these are the things that will weaken the dollar far more than any external alliance ever could. And this is why smart people are worried. Because even if BRICS disappeared tomorrow, the structural problems inside the U.S. economy would still exist. The dollar is under pressure from both sides. External competition from BRICS and internal decay from policy failures, debt accumulation, and declining trust. BRICS is not America's biggest enemy. America is the POS. So what happens next? Let me give you 5 specific predictions for the next 5 years. These aren't vague guesses. These are data-driven forecasts based on current trends. Prediction number 1. By 2027, BRICS will dominate commodity pricing. Oil, gas, metals, agricultural products. The majority of these will be priced and traded in non-dollar currencies. The petrodollar won't die completely, but it will become optional instead of mandatory. Prediction number 2. The first country to fully abandon dollar-based oil contracts will be either Saudi Arabia or Iran. Saudi is already testing the waters with yuan-based deals. Iran has no choice but to use alternatives because of sanctions. One of them will go ELN within the next 2 years, and when they do, it will send shockwaves through global markets. Prediction number 3. The Chinese yuan will hit its highest ever share of global trade. Right now, the yuan represents about 3 to 4% of global transactions. By 2028, that number will be closer to 10 to 12%. That might not sound huge, but it represents a massive shift in financial power. Prediction number 4. The U.S. will quietly renegotiate petrodollar frameworks. This won't be announced with fanfare. It will happen behind closed doors. The U.S. will offer concessions, military support, trade deals, political backing in exchange for countries continuing to use the dollar for oil. But the terms will be weaker than before. The U.S. will be negotiating from a position of declining strength. Prediction number 5. Then, this is the big one. A BRICS member will betray the alliance by 2028. These countries do untrust each other. Their interests conflict. And when the pressure increases, one of them will break ranks. My money is on India or Brazil. And when that betrayal happens, it could either save the dollar or accelerate its decline even faster, depending on how the U.S. responds. Screenshot this. Hold me accountable. If I am wrong about prediction number 2, I'll donate $1,000 to charity and post the receipt. I am that confident in the data. So what do you do with this information? Let me give you 3 actionable steps you can take this week to protect yourself. Step number 1. Diversify your assets. Don't put all your savings in dollar-based accounts. Look at gold. Look at commodities. Look at assets that hold value even when currencies weaken. I am not saying abandon the dollar entirely. I am saying don't be 100% exposed to it. Step number 2. Pay attention to the DXY and Treasury auctions. The DXY is the dollar index. It tracks the dollar's strength against other major currencies. If it starts dropping consistently, that's your early warning signal. Also, watch Treasury auctions. If foreign buyers start pulling back and yields start spiking, that means demand for U.S. debt is falling. That's a red flag. Step number 3. Understand gold and oil indicators. When central banks buy gold aggressively, it means they are losing confidence in paper currencies. When oil-producing nations start pricing in non-dollar terms, it means the petrodollar is weakening. These are the canaries in the coal mine. Watch them closely. You don't need to panic, but you do need to pay attention. The people who see this shift coming early are the ones who will protect their wealth. The people who ignore it will wake up one day wondering why everything suddenly costs twice as much. So here's the final truth. The dollar is not finished. Not yet. But BRICS has started a financial war that America cannot afford to ignore. And the outcome of this war will determine the value of your savings, the cost of your groceries, and the economic future of the next generation. The dollar will remain the most important currency in the world for the foreseeable future. But it will be weaker, more vulnerable, and less dominant than it has been in 80 years. And that changes everything. Now, I am doing a part 2 to this video, and it is going to blow your mind. It is called, Which BRICS Country Will Betray the Alliance First, Then the CIA Document That Proves It. If you want that video, comment the word betrayal right now. Seriously, I need to know if you want me to break down the intelligence reports. the backroom deals, and the country that's about to flip. Also, drop a comment telling me, who do you think wins this war, the US dollar or BRICS? I am reading every single comment, and I'll pin the best ones. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button. If you want more deep dives into the financial system that actually runs the world, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. The dollar is not dead, but the world is changing. And the people who understand that early are the ones who win. I'll see you in the next one.